Harry Welsh and Richard Winters remained close friends long after the Second World War ended. Their correspondence continued over the decades, though it became noticeably more frequent when historian Stephen E. Ambrose began gathering material for the book Band of Brothers. Before Ambrose became involved, however, the letters between Welsh and Winters were much more casual. In the 1980s, they occasionally exchanged notes about life, memories, and the war. Nothing formal, nothing carefully constructed for history. Later, as Ambrose began his research, there was increasing pressure to document as much as possible. Much of that pressure came from Winters himself, who wanted the story of the men and their experiences properly recorded. As later events would show, that push for details sometimes caused friction between Winters and some of the veterans. But one particular letter from Welsh stands out. Written roughly 45 years after the war, it lists 10 moments that had stayed with him ever since. These were the memories he described as impossible to forget. Welsh's handwriting can be difficult to decipher, so the following are the moments as they appear in his letter. The first memory takes him back to England, before the invasion of Europe. He recalls the hours spent practicing hand and arm signals, rehearsing tactics, and conducting exercises with live ammunition. These were the training days that prepared the men of Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, for what lay ahead. The second memory concerns Winters' charge against what Welsh calls 88 emplacements in Normandy. This is almost certainly a reference to the action at Brecourt Manor shortly after D-Day. Many veterans, both during and after the war, tended to refer to nearly every piece of German artillery as an 88. In reality, the guns at Brecourt were French 105mm howitzers that had been captured and used by the Germans. It was a common wartime habit. Every tank seemed to be called a Tiger, and every enemy marksman a sniper. Welsh described Winters' assault as a one-man crusade, though in truth, the action involved several members of Easy Company. Welsh himself wasn't present during the attack. Still, the event became one of the most famous small unit actions of the war, and Winters was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for his leadership. That award carried considerable weight. Many heroic acts performed by paratroopers during the war went largely unnoticed. At the time, regimental commanders had informally agreed that only one Medal of Honor would be awarded within the regiment during the war. Afterward, there were occasional efforts to have Winters' award upgraded, but those attempts were unsuccessful. Some believe the Distinguished Service Cross was appropriate. Winters' achievement at Brecourt may have been less about individual heroics and more about tactical brilliance under pressure. Other men in the regiment performed equally extraordinary acts. Welsh himself, for instance, destroyed a German armored vehicle with a bazooka during the fighting at Battle of Bloody Gulch, an action that likely influenced the outcome of that battle, yet it received relatively little recognition. Moments like Battle of Foy and the desperate defense of Siege of Bastogne provide other examples of extraordinary bravery that never translated into major awards. Welsh's third memory is more personal and somewhat humorous in hindsight. He recalls Winters dragging him off a road in Normandy after Welsh had somehow fallen asleep in the middle of a firefight while German machine guns were firing nearby. What Welsh did not mention in the letter was why he had fallen asleep. Earlier that day, Easy Company had been marching toward Carentan when Welsh discovered a keg of cognac inside a farmhouse. Rather than share it, he attempted to drink the entire thing himself. The effort ended predictably, with Welsh unconscious in the road. When German forces suddenly counterattacked, Winters had to pull him out of danger and deliver a stern reprimand afterward. Incidents like this, and Welsh's continued fondness for alcohol, may have played a role later when Winters chose another officer to command Easy Company after his own promotion during Operation Market Garden. Welsh's fourth memory describes the assault on Carentan. He admits he never quite learned how to spell the town's name, but he clearly remembered the moment, running forward under a hail of bullets, unsure what waited ahead, yet never doubting the company would prevail. Welsh himself demonstrated considerable courage during that battle. At one point he destroyed a German MG-42 machine gun with a hand grenade that had been pinning down the company during their advance. The scene was later portrayed in the television adaptation Band of Brothers. His fifth memory recalls pushing a machine gun through a second-story window in Carentan to provide covering fire after spotting Winters at a wall with German soldiers on the opposite side. The sixth memory concerns a tense moment during the German counterattack outside Carentan. Welsh remembered crawling into an open field with a young paratrooper carrying a bazooka to destroy a German tank forcing its way through a gap in the hedgerows. The soldier was John McGrath, who had volunteered for airborne service after being drafted. McGrath had joined Easy Company shortly before the unit shipped overseas. He parachuted into Normandy and fought throughout the campaign, including the fighting around Bloody Gulch, where he and Welsh successfully destroyed a German assault gun. McGrath's wartime path mirrored that of many of the company's veterans. He fought through Market Garden, survived Bastogne, and later served in Headquarters Company as a radio operator. That assignment kept him slightly behind the front lines. He also played a small part in a curious episode late in the war. While in Germany, he located a vehicle believed to have belonged to Adolf Hitler. To test whether it truly was bulletproof, McGrath fired a round at it. The vehicle later appeared in photographs with Floyd Taubert standing on it. Remarkably, McGrath fought through Normandy, Holland, Bastogne, and Germany without ever being wounded, something very few soldiers could claim. Yet despite his experiences, he was never contacted by Ambrose or the writers involved in Band of Brothers. Later in life, McGrath worked for decades in his local fire department and remained active well into his 90s. He passed away on April 24, 2012. Welsh's seventh memory refers to a patrol across the Rhine conducted with Lieutenant Frederick Moose Heiliger. Welsh remembered it as the easiest patrol he ever participated in. The mission was part of Operation Pegasus, during which Allied troops successfully evacuated stranded British paratroopers. Heiliger received both a Bronze Star and the British Military Cross for his role. The eighth memory takes place in Holland, near a barn beside a railroad embankment. Welsh remembered the position vividly because German patrols were active throughout the night, and the company narrowly avoided disaster several times. At one point, Heiliger even forgot the password that was supposed to identify friendly troops. Not long afterward, on October 31, 1944, Heiliger was seriously wounded by a sentry while returning to the command post with Winters. The sentry was a replacement soldier whose identity was never fully confirmed. Winters later transferred him out of the regiment. Accounts suggest that Welsh had been informed of the officer's approach but failed to warn the sentry. Whether Winters himself knew the password that night is also uncertain. The entire episode appears to have been a tragic chain of misunderstandings. Heiliger survived his wounds, but spent years recovering from severe skin and nerve damage. Eventually, he rebuilt his life and worked as an ornamental horticulturist, living another 50 years before passing away at age 85. The ninth memory describes a patrol near that same railroad embankment. Welsh recalled crawling between two German machine gun positions before attacking a patrol on the far side. Finally, the 10th memory concerns a night patrol across the Rhine late in the war. Welsh remembered guiding artillery fire, specifically a 105mm gun, toward a factory complex about a mile inland. The target contained troops and an ammunition dump, and when the artillery finally struck, the entire site erupted in a massive explosion involving both 105mm and 155mm shells. Exactly which engagement Welsh was referring to here is somewhat unclear. Welsh ended the letter by telling Winters that he didn't mind discussing his wartime experiences. Before signing off, he mentioned a book Winters had sent him titled The Evaders. The book tells the story of a Canadian paratrooper captured during Operation Market Garden, who escaped by jumping from a moving train headed for Germany. After escaping, he organized the rescue of other Allied prisoners. For his part in one of the most remarkable mass escapes of the war, he was awarded the Military Cross. Although the story itself is extraordinary, the book's reviews have been somewhat mixed.